inspired. It's like the most beautiful thing ever. That's what inspires me. Yeah, it was kind of how we did this like the mom. We didn't say it's about the mom. It's just like his name is I saw him last year in December. Yeah, he was like fun.
What?
Yeah.
What did Benjamin remind me of? Alright! Woohoo! Alright, should we go ahead and start?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get started. Before we start, what I'm wearing today, this shirt, there's a conference happening right now, the National Communication Association, and Benjamin and I are both graduate students studying communication. So when we applied for the Fringe, we were like, awesome, we can like apply to be in the Fringe, and like we could end up doing the conferences as well, and we'll kill like 2 birds with 1 stone, which we thought was like a fantastic idea. And then today we're like freaking out, like doing the conference in the morning and then coming here at night. But this morning at the conference we had this panel on grunge, and talking about like how grunge could be like scholarship. And so which is kind of funny because, you know, I can consider myself, and Benjamin can consider himself, scholars of grunge, right? Which is kind of cool. But at the same time, like, I think back about like my history of grunge and where I gained my expertise from that, and it's kind of funny because, well, this is a story about how I learned how to walk. I was in middle school in 6th grade, and when I had been in 5th grade, I went to a private Jewish school, right? And my name is Ariel, and in the 5th grade, the Little Mermaid came out. So we all laughed because we thought it was funny that Disney gave this girl character what is clearly a guy's name, right? But then I get to middle school, and it's a public school, and apparently the rest of the world did not speak Hebrew and didn't understand that my name was in fact a guy's name. So I ended up getting like taunted relentlessly. And I'm walking down the halls one day, and someone comes up and just knocks the books out of my hand, right? Yep, that's about it. And there was a kid in my class named Sebastian too. Like, oh, it was really bad when we got together. We were not friends. Like, there was no way. But anyway, so like this guy knocks the books out of my hands, and I pick them up, and as I'm picking them up, he says, "You walk like a girl." And I'm like, shit, I didn't know that. And I didn't know what that meant, right? So I started noticing like the girls and how they walk, right? And first off, the girls, they all carried their books in their hands like that. And I carried my books in the hands like that. And then like I saw all the guys, and they had the books under their arms, right? And then the girls, it was like middle school, so like they're all wearing like as short of skirts as they can, so they have to take like really small steps so that nothing shows. And it's true, I was a small guy, and so I took really small steps because I was a really small kid, and I realized, I was like, okay, well maybe I do kind of walk like a girl, but I didn't want to walk like a girl, I want to walk like a guy. So I started watching how the guys walked. And this is, you know, early 90s California surfer culture, so the guys have like this swagger where they think like they're the coolest shit in the world, and I'm like, okay, I really want to learn how to do that. So I go home and I start practicing. And I practice in front of the mirror my walk. I find alleyways where no one's around, and I practice my walk. And then one day I think I have it, right? Like I'm pretty sure like I got the walk down, and I'm really excited about this. So I'm walking to the bus stop. I'm more strutting to the bus stop, right? And I get to the bus stop, and there's this girl there named Jessica who I see every day, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And Jessica's like, hey. Obviously not impressed with my new walk, but she didn't notice it, right? So like that's a good step. And then I'm thinking about, you know, what's going to happen at school, and I'm going to be walking down the halls, and I'm going to be strutting around the halls, and people are going to be like, man, there's that Ariel kid, and he can strut, he can walk, he's walking like a guy, and I'm going to be like, yes I am, right? And I'm just going to be like carried up by the school, and like paraded around for being so fucking awesome. And then this girl Jessica comes, another Jessica, there's 2 Jessicas at the bus stop, and Jessica number 2 comes up, and she's in tears. And Jessica number 1 says to Jessica number 2 what happened, and Jessica number 2 says, Kurt died today. And I had no fucking clue who Kurt was. Jessica, number one, then starts to cry, and I'm like, realizing that, like, I don't know who Kurt is, I walk like a girl, I'm just like, it's too much work to be cool. And I figured, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna be lame. And now I've embraced that. So like this morning at the conference, like being an expert on grunge, when like the day Kurt died and I had no idea who the hell it was kind of ironic. But yeah, so welcome to our show. My name is Ari, I go by Ari now, and that's Benjamin. Lisa's sitting over there, she's our director, we have things that we need to tell them.
Yes, so a couple things. The first is that there's beer in a cooler here at the edge of the stage, and if you're thirsty, feel free just at any time to grab something. The second thing is that we try to be an interactive audience, or interactive with you as an audience and all of those things, but so if you take your cell phones and just make sure that they're at least on silent, we're going to give you, like, perhaps if we get there to that place, as all maps could lead you down many paths. If we end up at a place where we ask you to use those, at least have them on silent such that they aren't too disruptive to your neighbors. And the last thing, and sort of festival officiality things, is that there's no photography allowed except for that which is sort of officially done by the festival.
Like that dude right there, he's okay.
Yeah. And if you'll keep that in mind, we appreciate that. With that.
Oh, and then the theme for the night. So each night we kind of like pick a theme that drives the types of stories that we tell, and we decided that, with Occupy Wall Street and all that, why not have our theme be occupation? Woohoo! Occupy! Corporate conferences still suck. They do. And so we welcome you to tweet any stories that you might have about occupations, about things you have occupied in the past, about things you would like to see occupied. And if you don't have Twitter on your phone, we've included some low-tech tweet materials in your bags. So you can...
Oh yeah, you got bags.
Yes.
So we should probably tell you that you got bags. So you have these treat bags, sort of things. They have, likely they have toy dinosaurs, which are my favorite part. If I got to like participate in adding anything, that would be what I would add. Many, many more of. There's probably candy or gum or something, and there's also some writing materials. These low-tech tweets would be basically a strip of paper that if you want to tell us something, a theme, an idea, a story that you have that sort of you're reminded of here, wad that thing into a ball and throw it at us. Or make a paper airplane, and depending on your skills, it'll fly. But that's sort of, I don't know, is there anything else in there?
I don't know.
We didn't actually make them. We stole them off the kids.
So yes, enjoy your bags, enjoy the show. We're ready to go. The first story that I'm going to tell you comes from my grandmother. My grandmother told me the story when I was a little kid, and I remembered it my entire life, and it's one of those stories that, there's a lot of stories that went into us deciding to put together a performance like this. And this is one of those sort of core stories that I've held on to. So it's called The Story About Stories. Now one day there was a very, very old woman, and she was bent over and nearly broken by time, and she wandered into this little village. And she walked up to the first door that she saw in the village, and she knocked on it. And the guy opened up the door just a crack, and he looked down, and he saw this old, haggard woman in front of him. He says, "What do you want?" And she looks up to him, and she says, "Please, sir, it's cold out, and I have nowhere to spend the night. Could you spare some room?" And he says, "I'm sorry, my house is already filled with people. We don't have any room." And he tried to shut the door on her, but she stopped him and said, "Well, if you can't spare any room, perhaps some food, I'm starving." And he says, "Times are tough. I can't even spare enough for my own family. Goodbye." And he shut the door in her face. Not to be discouraged, she went on to the next house. And she knocked on that door, but received the same treatment. So she went on to the next house and received the same treatment, and the next house and the same treatment, and so on, until she had gone to every single house in the village and been outright rejected by them all. So finally, resigned to her fate, she found a tree that stood on a hill just outside of the village. So she went up to that tree and she laid herself down and she tried to go to sleep, but as she was about to fall asleep, she noticed a stranger walking into the town. And as the stranger came into town, he walked up to that first house that she went to. and he knocked on the door. No sooner had he knocked on the door than he was welcomed in. With that thought on her mind, she tried to sleep. But the night grew colder and the winds blew harder. And then the rains came down and kept her up all the way till dawn. At dawn, she finally gathered her meager belongings and she began to head out of town. But as she was leaving, she noticed a stranger that had come in the middle of the night was also leaving. And she stopped him and she said, "Sir, I must know, I tried at every house in the village and I was rejected by all of them, but you try one and immediately you're welcomed in. What's your secret?" And the man looks down at her and she's old and decrepit. And he says, when people look at you, they see what's to come. They see their future in you and they try to shut it out. But the man was handsome and he was tall and he was young. And he says, when they see me, they see what they could be and they want me to come in. The woman said she understood and she started to leave. But the man stopped her and he said, "I have an idea. Why don't we travel together from now on? And as soon as we come to a house, you'll simply hide within my cloak and they won't know you're there. And then we'll both be welcomed in." Well, the woman thought this was a great idea. And she said, "Thank you very much. What is your name?" And he said, "My name is Story." And she said, "My name is Truth." So from that day on, wherever Story went, truth could be found within his cloak.
So I used to work in